Guys, Tomboy601, and today we're doing a new style of video I'm calling Versus, where we put two ships head to head up against each other and determine which one is best. This one, for our debut episode, is going to be Stalingrad in Alaska. Of course, Stalingrad going on sale on Monday for 2 million global XP. Alaska, available for free in the Bureau if you decide to invest your time in it. I've gotten a lot of questions about which one is best, which one is better. Have you tried the Alaska since it's buff? Because this past update, Alaska did receive a buff that changed it significantly. So this episode, we're going to go over basically both of the stats with the builds that I use on them, and then compare them, talk about them, and kind of overall decide which ship is better. So yeah, if you're liking that idea, make sure you hit the like button down below, and we're just going to go ahead and dive on in. So we're going to go ahead and lead off with commanders, and let's first start with the Alaska's commander. And for me, my guy is going to be Victor F. Einstein, the Halloween commander. I use him on all of my heavy cruisers for the Americans. His inspiration is going to be Nikolai von Essen and Isaraku Yamamoto to help buff that AP, because American AP, very strong. Then his feature is going to be Whirlbout, which increases the main battery traverse speed, and then skills are going to be Ingenious, Intuitive, Punch Through, Fixated, and Refill Station. And the reason why I really like Einstein is because with Ingenious and with Intuitive, it means you both get the nearest enemy indicator, which is super nice for when you need to hunt down those pesky destroyers in a game, but you also get Ingenious, which tells you when you are being targeted, all of which are super helpful. On the flip side of the coin, our commander for the Russian Stalingrad is going to be Nikolai Kuznetsov. Now, Kuznetsov, we're using a similar Von Essen, but we're going to be using Mimbelli just to help with the reload time on those guns. Kuznetsov is going to boost the range of the vessel, and then we have Beyond Range, which is going to increase the range of the main gun again. Intuitive, once again giving that nearest enemy indicator. Punch Through, Steer Clear, and Fully Packed. And those are the two commanders. I do find myself liking and leaning more towards Einstein as the overall better commander, just because of the utility he provides. Now, utility, that brings us into a nice little rant on utility. So, as far as consumables go, which is where I feel like you get the utility of these ships, well, the Stalingrad, she has the damage control party, the radar, which is an 11.7 kilometer radar. It's going to last 21 seconds. It's going to reload in 176.4 seconds, and you're going to get 3 of those charges because we are running fully packed. And she also has a repair party, which does 324 health per second. It's going to last 28 seconds, and it's going to reload every 78.4 seconds. On the flip side, as far as consumables for the Alaska, well, we have the damage control party. We have sonar, which is a 3.1 kilometer sonar on torpedoes and a 4.4 kilometer one on ships. You can switch out for enhanced AA, much like you can switch the radar out on the Stalingrad for the enhanced AA, though I don't feel like anyone really uses enhanced AA all that much, because both radar and sonar are far more convenient and far more useful than losing them to enhanced AA. Then the Alaska also has a radar. It's a shorter 9-kilometer radar. It's going to last 31.2 seconds. It's going to have a reload time of 180 seconds, and it's going to have 2 charges of it. On the flip side, you could also have a fighter plane. And then the final thing, it does have a better heal, 437 HP per tick. It's going to last 28 seconds. Reload time is 50 seconds, and number of consumables is 3. And also, I'm going to have to say, I think the Alaska has the better utility here. Not only does it have more and a wider selection, while the Stalingrad does have a better radar overall, like 11-kilometer radar is nicer, I think the American radar, lasting longer, and while it may be shorter range, it still has decent range, is going to end up being more useful. With those two covered, that's 2 imaginary points towards Alaska. The next sections we're going to cover is going to go through the stats, and we'll award basically a point for each of the main sections in the stats. So for us, that's going to be survivability. Artillery, we're going to break out into 2 sections for main guns and secondary guns. AA defense, maneuverability, and concealment. So let's first start with survivability, and that's going to be armor and hit points. So HP of the Alaska, 54,720. Armor thickness is going to be between 16 and 330 millimeters. The bow armor on the ship, 32 millimeters. The deck armor between 32 and 36 millimeters, and it'll have a 13% torpedo reduction. And let's go ahead and take a look at the armor view for this vessel. I've gone ahead and just left up the bow, the citadel, and the turrets, as those are where I feel like are the most important sections. So on that bow, we can go ahead and see that the majority of it's going to be 32 mil, and at the top is also going to be 32 millimeter. The deck on the center section does go up to 36 millimeters of deck armor, though most of the time you're probably going to end up hitting superstructure or the turrets. Speaking of the turrets, they're going right on down there to the citadel, and there's something you can notice about this citadel. It is below the waterline, making it just a little bit harder to hit and making it not as exposed as the other vessel we are talking about today, and of course, that is the good old Stalingrad. So Stalingrad is going to go ahead and have 65,000 hit points for its base HP. Armor thickness is between 6 and 617 millimeters, and its bow armor is, well, it has an icebreaker hull. So that means if we look at the armor view right here, we can go ahead and see there's a lower ring of 50 millimeters of armor that can bounce. It cannot be overmatched by anything in the game, meaning if a Yamato decides to go ahead and shoot you right in the nose, if it hits that bottom section, you're going to be safe. However, it does also have an upper section of 32 millimeters of armor. The deck armor is going to be either that 50 millimeters or it will be 32 millimeters. And we can go ahead and see probably the biggest thing that lets the Stalin down, because while all of the other stats are very impressive, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to go ahead and win this category for armor, the one thing you do have to be conscious of is that citadel. It is sitting straight out of the water. It looks like it would just be another armor belt, but in fact, that citadel sits high and proud in the waterline, and if you give too much side, well, it is going to hurt you really, really badly. But with all of that said, it does have a much better armor scheme, I think, than the Alaska, with the ability to absorb a couple of more bigger caliber guns, and also because it has a thicker deck armor, it can resist tier 7 like medium cruiser level HEs a bit better than the Alaska can. On to the next category, and that's going to be the main battery. For the Alaska, you're looking at three-barreled 305 millimeter guns. In fact, both ships have these caliber of guns. Firing range on the Alaska, 16 kilometers with a reload time of 16.7 seconds, giving you 32 shells per minute. 180 time on the guns, 24.1 seconds. HE shells, well, the Alaska has them, 4,300 damage per shell, giving you a DPM of 137,600 and a 27% chance to set fire. AP damage for the Alaska, 9,345, giving you a DPM of 299,040. On the flip side, we do have Stalingrad, as we said before, three-barreled 305 millimeter guns with a firing range of 19.6 kilometers, easily outranging the Alaska. Reload time on those guns, 16.9, so a slight increase, but it still gives you around 32 shells per minute. 180 time, slower, 34.5 seconds. No HE shells to speak of. AP damage is lower, 8,925, giving you a DPM of 285,600. And these points, well, I'm going to award it to Alaska. The only thing the Stalingrad really does better than the Alaska here is range. But when you're talking about 16 to 19 kilometers, yes, there's 3 kilometers, but how often and how effective are you going to be as a teammate if you're sitting on the moon at 19.6 kilometers? Mind you, it is kind of the playstyle you have to adopt with the Stalingrad, but given sometimes the Stalingrad's issues with accuracy, it can kind of add up, and really, Alaska having the versatility to have HE, so when a ship goes nose in on you, is really, really useful. Next up, we have the secondary batteries. Interestingly, both ships have 6 two-barreled guns, and they both kind of share a similar layout. They have 2 dedicated guns on both sides, and then 2 guns that are shared on the center line. The Stalingrad's 2 turrets are located at the front of the ship, where the Alaska's 2 center line turrets are positioned forward and aft of the superstructure. The Alaska has 6 two-barreled 127mm guns with a range of 5.2 kilometers. Reload time on them, 6 seconds, damage 1800, and a 5% chance to set fire. Conversely, the Stalingrad, 6 two-barreled 130mm guns, range on them, the exact same 5.2 kilometers, but it has a quicker reload of 4 seconds, a similar damage of 1800, and an 8% chance to set fire. Just by the numbers here, I think you can see the Stalingrad either matches or is better than the Alaska in all of the categories. So I'm going to go ahead and give the point to Alaska here. Now, if we did have ships with torpedoes, we talk about them here, but sadly, there are no torpedoes on these vessels. So we are on to AA, the anti-aircraft armament of these ships. Well, Alaska has a 5-kilometer range. It's going to do a minimum of 91 damage per second and a maximum of 345. Conversely, Stalingrad, it's going to actually outclass Alaska at all of the stats. 5.7 kilometer minimum range, and in that minimum damage, it's going to do 167 damage per second, and at maximum, it's going to do 375. Neither of which are really bad. They're both very well performing as far as AA damage goes. It's just that the Stalingrad slightly edges out of them here. Next, we're going to be on to maneuverability. And the Alaska is actually going to lose 2 of these categories. Max speed of the vessel, 33 knots. Turning radius, 850 meters. And a rudder shift time of 13 seconds. Conversely, Stalingrad is going to have a max speed of 36 knots, have a turning radius of 1,130 meters, and it's going to have a rudder shift time of 12 seconds. And I know that the Stalingrad has 2 stats that are better here, but in a category named maneuverability, I don't think I can give it to the Stalingrad, considering it has an over kilometer the turning circle is over a kilometer. I just can't say, oh yeah, Stalingrad, way more maneuverable than Alaska, when it takes over a kilometer to turn this thing around. So these points are going to go to the Alaska as well. Finally, we have concealment. Alaska is going to end up winning this category. Detectability by sea, 11.4 kilometers. Detectability by air, 7.2 kilometers. And detectability in smoke, 10.2 kilometers. Over on the Stalingrad, you're looking at 13 kilometers by sea, 8.1 by air, and 11.7 in firing in smoke. This category also goes to the Alaskan. As we can see, Alaska wins pretty handily in our point-to-point matchup of all of these categories. And as a ship overall, I kind of agree with this rundown. The Alaska, I do think, especially with the new and most recent buffs, does simply kind of outperform Stalingrad in versatility. Yes, the Stalingrad is pretty cool. It's niche. It's cool that, yeah, you can only fire AP, and you have to have like perfect positioning. And sometimes, even though it says it's the most accurate, it goes a little wonky, but the spread's really wide, so it makes it kind of easy to hit citadels, but also difficult. Like, it is a mix of a ship. But I think if you're looking for consistent, high-performing, heavy cruiser at the legendary tier, Alaska is the place to go. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you think Alaska is better than Stalingrad? Or maybe I'm just a crazy person. There is that distinct possibility, and that's completely okay. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See ya.